Alright, it's been a while since I've done one of these, and I was actually thinking about getting some special software to do this as a special video, to cut some other stuff in here, to explain a few lead-ups, but 3.947 quintillion, okay. No! Alright. Here's what I'm going to be actually doing. Yeah, sure. I'm going to actually explain to you how the newspapers, mainstream media news, and all that doesn't publish anything without government's consent, and how basically the government massively censors everything. And I mean, like, no joke, this is a complete and utter censorship. You have news media has no free will. I'm going to explain to you how they've done it, how it's been done, and how it actually dates all the way back to Abraham Lincoln even. This is no joke. Alright? So, get ready. This is going to be a wild, wild ride. And you are going to be shocked at how much control they actually flex. Alright? And luckily, another YouTuber's actually done some political looking up, so I'm going to be playing a couple of his clips too. Hopefully it's going to be okay with it. Alright? This is going to be a wild ride, so buckle up. You're going to be shocked what you're going to be learning. Alright? So, let's start with the first piece of censorship. Alright? Eventually the government began pushing editorial opposite. Okay, hold on a second, move side back. Based on this argument, okay, administration began conducting or went, hold on a second, a little farther back. In the wake of this slight oversight, some Democratic war opponents tried arguing that okay, here we go. The Constitution guarantees free speech, press, and all that blah blah blah. Based on this argument, the administration began conducting tributes. Greeley privily thought Lincoln timid to the run of the... Okay, hold on a second. Timid run. Months earlier, Lincoln had assured delegates to the Washington Peace Conference that even in the wake of secession, he still believed a free press necessary to... You see, this is where he basically spoke and saying how free press is necessary. But the record suggests otherwise. Following the Bull Run, the administration turned its attention not only to foreign weaponry and raising more troops, but also to... Okay, this explains how the military basically went from, units... basically, prior to the Civil War, each state had their own military. It was basically... Well, you actually see it in a lot of old movies, stuff like that, where each would be this number and this with state name, because actually the federal government had no military until after the Civil War. In the wake of this tightened oversight, some Democratic war opponents tried arguing that the Constitution guarantees that free speech and free press must remain absolute no matter what danger of an armed revolt. Even Lincoln's friend Edward Baker, in one of his final speeches in the U.S. Senate before accepting his fateful military commission, insisted, you see, basically, opponents to Lincoln taking control of the newspapers, Lincoln basically drafted them into the military. That's why the draft was a tool for political gain. Alright? Congress shall make no law abridging freedom of speech or of the press, and Congress never did this, did not inhibit administration from determining. Okay, based on this argument, the administration began conducting, or when it occurred, spontaneously tolerating repressive actions against opposition newspapers. You see, this is basically where they started basically using methods to oppress oppositions in the newspapers. Alright, here we go. Sentiments that might encourage border states of the Union. In an anonymous dispatch for the New York Examiner, presidential clerk William Stoddard probably spoke for the White House in complaining that cut off from their usual sources, The Legion of Daily, yeah, basically the government began silencing people that would send reports to newspapers that would then get published. All right, because basically this is what the government did. It basically cut off supply lines for supplies, papers, and information. All right, here we go. Eventually, the military and the government began pushing editorial opposition to the war itself. Authorities banned pro-peace newspapers from the U.S. mails. You see what they're doing here? This is when they started basically banning pro-peace newspapers from being able to use the mail to mail their papers to people. Shut down newspaper offices. You see here, they're shutting down peace newspapers. Confiscated printing materials. They intimidated and sometimes imprisoned reporters, editors, and publishers who sympathized with the South or objected to an armed struggle to restore the. You see here? This is when it all started. It's when the snowball started, okay? You see, they're going to arrest these people. Okay. Now I hope you're starting to sink in here, okay? That's how far back censorship actually goes. It goes a lot farther back than people realize. All right, now you're probably wondering, okay, what's next? This is probably what you're wondering. All right. What's next, okay? Now we're getting to the good part here, okay? Alright. This is Amusing Lewis. I want to give credit to Amusing Lewis for doing this part for me, okay? Because I forgot about Satellite News Channel. I used to watch them when I had a big dish in the backyard, okay? Let's listen to this.
This is the Satellite News Channel. All news, all the time.
Let's go back once again to the 1980s during the Wild West days of cable television. Back then, everyone wanted to throw their hat in the ring and get a piece of that cable ad revenue. One of these attempts will come in the form of Satellite News Channel, or SNC for short. This was a 24-hour news channel that would be one of the first competitors to CNN, which had launched only 2 years prior. The network was a joint venture between ABC and Group W and was headquartered in Stamford.
Let's listen to this for a minute and watch this.
This is the Satellite News Channel.
Amusing Lewis did use a fine work.
All the time.
Let's go back once again to the 1980s during the Wild West days of cable television. Back then, everyone wanted to throw their hat in the ring and get a piece of that cable ad revenue. One of these attempts
Ted
will come in the
Turner,
form
who
of
founded
Satellite
CNN. I
News
just want you
Channel,
to take a
or
look
SNC
at
for
this too
short.
while you listen to
This
that.
was a 24-hour news channel that would be one of the first competitors to CNN,
Ted
which
Turner.
had launched only 2 years prior. The network was a joint venture between ABC and Group W and was headquartered in Stamford, Connecticut, probably across the street from the WWF. Unlike CNN, rather than presenting the news in a more formal and serious manner, SNC took a different approach and presented the news in a rotational newscast format that changed every 18
What
minutes.
we're looking for is
This innovative format covered the top 3 news 3 times an hour, with the remaining 12 minutes of each 30-minute cycle dedicated to local news, where it would cut away to one of the network's select regional stations. This unique format, which was quite ahead of its time, would shape the network's identity, where they would even incorporate the
Turner
motto,
Broadcasting
"Give us 18
System.
minutes
Here we go,
and
here
we'll
we
give you
go.
the world." SNC wasn't running a slop shop
Ooh,
either. The network was
Democrat.
equipped with millions of dollars of high-tech equipment
I
and
was
was praised for
corrected,
its
okay.
production and presentation. However, Ted Turner didn't take the idea of
Time
competition
Warner,
lightly
AOL,
and wasn't going to allow
Vice
anyone to
Chairman.
mess with his prize CNN, and unfortunately
Democrat.
for SNC, it would be an
Time
uphill
Warner.
battle. Before they would even launch, Ted Turner would launch another 24-hour news channel,
National Cable
CNN2.
Television.
What inspired you to build another CNN right alongside the original?
Money!
Despite SNC's valiant efforts,
Turner
including
Broadcasting.
coverage of significant events such as the Washington Monument standoff and the
Oh, look at
1982
this.
primary
What is this,
election,
man?
the network's
Turner-
financial
oh, no,
situation
here's
made it difficult
CNN.
to continue operations. After just a year, SNC
Cable
had lost an
television.
estimated
Ooh, look
$40
at that.
million, which is about
Turner
$130 million
Enterprises.
today when adjusted for inflation. This financial strain, coupled with the fierce competition and limited
Vice
channel
Chairman.
space of the time, would lead to
Oh,
SNC's
DNC.
ultimate demise. During this
That.
age of cable, it was a cutthroat
Turner
competition,
Enterprises.
and unfortunately, SNC had the short end of the stick. During its final broadcast, SNC would present the news in its traditional format, with its staff celebrating in the background. Despite the cheering and the feel-good moments, it still felt kind of somber because at the end of the day, they're losing their jobs.
I'm Deborah Stone saying goodbye. I've actually been nervous for these few minutes after having done 1,000 hours or so on SNC. Thank you all for watching. It's been a joy.
Just as they wrapped up the news, they gave a final look back on the last 16 months of air until it was cued to the credits of everyone involved. SNC would cease operations on October 27, 1983, and Turner soon purchased the channel space to expand CNN2, which had renamed itself as Headline News. The story of Satellite News Channel is similar to that of Cable Music Channel. They both tried to take on an established network but never had the fighting chance. Well, at least SNC lasted longer.
City dwellers have learned to cope with the problem of dog droppings, but it took a Cincinnati judge to rule that even peacocks are subject to pooper scooper laws. Oh, goodness. I'm sorry. I can't finish the story.
All right. So Ted Turner, basically an independent news network, basically set up another CNN right next to the other one to basically squeeze out Satellite News Network. And look at this. Look at this Turner. Look at all this Turner Broadcasting, CNNs, and all that. This Turner Enterprises, CEO, National. All right. That's another Ted Turner. Okay. That's a Turner. Oh, look at this Turner Broadcasting, Ted Turner. To the Democrats. Turner Broadcasting. National Cable Television. See? You basically squeezed them out and bought them out. Look at this. Here we go. Here's the business under the business title, CNN. Turner Broadcasting to the Democrats. Yeah, real political. Real political. All right. But now we're getting to the big one here, when the government actually stepped in and completely took over television news. They took the newspapers, now they're taking the televisions, and you've been seeing them trying to take the internet as well. NET, National Education Television, 1954 to 1970.
National Educational
Again, I'm using Lewis, did another fantastic job with this one.
We sent you to America so you could be our mole.
Hey.
treachery
I don't want this.
In the early days of broadcast television, options for network selection were limited. The only major names you had were CBS, NBC, and ABC. But in 1952, the Ford Foundation established the Educational Television and Radio Center, later changed to National Educational Television. Before PBS even existed, NET once held the crown as the leader in educational programming. Initially, it served as a middleman, facilitating the exchange and distribution of programs made by local stations, and then distributing them to other stations. By the spring of 1954, NET would become a network, launching with just 5 hours of educational content a week that provided science shows, fine art programs, discussions
Some
on
of
current
NET's
affairs, and most
documentaries
notably,
is on YouTube
children's
as well.
television. This would be the home to some of the most iconic programs like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and Sesame Street. By the early 1960s, NET would expand to 10 hours a week and start expanding in several parts of the nation. Things would get better when President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Public Broadcasting Act of 1967, which led to the creation of the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. This was meant to help fund public television and radio. While the funding made it much easier to create more programming, this also meant that NET had to meet a certain criteria, a criteria that they pretty much ignored and is possibly the reason for their demise. Sort of, I think. Let me explain. One of NET's most highly acclaimed yet controversial shows would be NET Journal and Public Broadcast Laboratory. These were more documentary-based shows that discussed heavier public affairs, including racism, critical takes on the Nixon administration, and the handling of the Vietnam War. It was these programs that infuriated Nixon, and because of that, they threatened to slash funding for public broadcasting from $20 million to $10 million. This, however, was swiftly dismissed when the GigaChad himself, Mr. Rogers, testified to Senator John Pastor and verbally murdered him with words of kindness in just 7 minutes. Like, just watching this is absolutely insane, because at the beginning, Senator Pastor had no idea who this guy was, and he seemed kind of smug about it. But towards the end, he had completely changed his demeanor, and I don't know, it's just so wholesome. Like go watch the video for yourself and you'll see what I mean. While Mr. Rogers just nonchalantly saved public television, NET would still ignore precautions and continue airing their documentaries. This might have been a fatal move, as I believe that the disregard from the CPB led to them creating the Public Broadcasting Service in 1969.
This is when
Slowly,
the
the
government
CPB would
found
decrease
that they're
funding
wrong.
for NET over the next 2 to 3 years, and the Ford Foundation had also threatened to pull off funding unless they were to neutralize themselves and merge with WNDT, a New Jersey-based TV station. With really not a lot of options left, NET would end up merging with WNDT and become WNET Channel 13 in October of 1970, resulting in NET ceasing operations and making PBS the new flagship fourth network. Many of NET's programs would move on to PBS, including those with the NET name until they were cancelled in 1972. Based on everything I just read researching this topic, it seemed like NET's demise was the result of sabotage on both sides involved. Before PBS became a network, there were these memorandums exchanged in late 1969 between Nixon's aide Peter Flanagan and White House staff assistant Clay Whitehead, talking to CPV President John Macy and Chairman of the Board Frank Pace, suggesting an increase of funds to make new programming facilities to replace NET, as well as decrease funding for the network until they had reached zero, primarily so that PBS, a more government-dependent network, can be the new face of public broadcasting. Considering that NET was spending its funding on current anti-administration content and just doing it without the regard from the CPB and the Nixon administration, I mean, I could see why they did that. I'm not saying it's right, but I guess he who pays the piper calls the tune. While NET is mostly forgotten about, the network has pioneered educational broadcasting and has challenged norms by presenting thought-provoking content on social issues that only got a little spotlight. Oh yeah, they also introduced the world to Mr. Rogers, so yeah, we salute you.
Now it pays to play.
That is how the government took all of control over all of the papers, all sources of news. That's why you notice that basically if the government, basically if the newspaper or the television say anything about any particular candidate, it's in direct order from the government. Even how the news is reported now has been leaked. It's just how it is. The government controls all news, all information, newspapers, television news. And that's why you notice that it's all politically biased. And it's all softballed against the government itself. There is no legit investigative journalism anymore. That's just how it is now. That's why you can't trust broadcast news. You can't trust the newspapers. You can't trust television. You can't trust cable news. You can't even trust satellite news. Because all of them is owned by deep embedded political parties. I want to show you something. Ted Turner, the founder of CNN. Check this out. Check this out. Check this out. Ted Turner. Wikipedia. Okay. Okay. Look at this. Look at this. Watch this. Watch this. All right. All right. Just watch this. Just watch this, okay? Just go down. Just go down. Just go down. Just going down. Just going down. Just going down. All right. Just scrolling on down. Oh. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Turner, dedicated. All right. I don't know if it's going to have it in here. Because actually he was, I don't know how to explain it, alright? I guess his business career, let's see here, Turner attended Brown University and was vice president of the Brown debating and captain of the Led even horrified almost. Turner later changed his major to economics, expelled from Brown. Because actually, this is all is it, okay, church when he was 9, family moved to Savannah, Georgia. Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be in here. Primary schools. Yeah, basically, he was brought up very privileged. His whole family was privileged. Yeah, so I don't know if I'd be able to find it. All right, so I ain't going to bother to try to find it because he was actually he attended one of those political party camps, if that makes any sense. Okay, when he was a little kid. So So yeah, basically Ted Turner was raised very, very, very political. All right, and that's why basically to protect his political parties and government, he squeezed out Satellite News Network, and that's why basically, and that's why there you go. The government does control mainstream media news, newspapers, televisions. When I was a little kid, before I had internet, okay? I mean, I wish I did have internet, and I wish I would have thought to record this. My mom was complaining about how, you know, the lottery was supposed to help fund schools, and I just point blank looked at her and said, well, call the local news and ask them, okay? Ask them to do a piece on where's the lottery money going, okay? And she was like, well, how do I do that? Okay, at the time then I went and just was like, okay, watch this. I grabbed the phone book, found the local the phone number for the local network, okay? All right. So I took a pen, circled, said call, okay? And she was like, but I don't want it. Just call to make sure I can hear the response, okay? And she was like, okay. She called. She then asked, all right, well, why don't you do a piece on, I mean, you're getting all the states getting all this money from the lottery, because we always see people buying it and saying that buying lottery tickets to help fund our local schools. So why don't you ask, where's the money going? Because they should be making so much money now that the students should be going in Rolls-Royce school buses or Mercedes-Benz school. Let's forget which you know, stock. At the time, the brand was Mercedes school buses. So because that was the brand that was associated with luxury, okay. And the person on the other end, then I made sure I had my ear because we had the landline time. She had kind of turned so I could hear as well. And the person was like, "Well, we don't want to risk our broadcast license, so we can't do that. We can't do any pieces that say anti-government." That's literally what the person said. Yeah. So you better believe the news media is basically taking their marching orders from the federal government, because they are. Same with the newspapers. So when they do anti-Trump, anti-this, pro-this, or blacking out Bernie Sanders on debate stages, at basically not even airing the questions he receives and he's answering during the primaries, it's by design. Okay? It's all by design. It's all in the name of political agenda pushing. Alright? You want to know who's running your government? I'll tell you who's running your government. It's not the people. It's the big top donors. They don't care about you. They don't care about equality. All right. It's just like Google had "do no evil" in its mission statement, and then when they got called out to the federal government, they took "do no evil" and then basically they ended up being bedfellows of the federal government. When you get up enough money, you are brought into the government and you are expected to obey. All right. I would be least bit surprised if when you get elected, all right, and you're running on a campaign of equality, helping the people, blah 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 blah. I wouldn't be least bit surprised if when you get down there to Washington D.C., you're taking in a little room with the real bosses of the governments in there, and they basically point blank look at you and say, "You will do this, otherwise you're going to be another one." That's why if you notice, every major personality that's anti-war all ends up in cemeteries. If you notice that. whereas the pro-war mongers are all basically allowed to do whatever they want as long as they keep pushing the United States being a instrument of war for NATO. I'm going to show you something. I'm going to show you something. "1934 Banana Wars." Look it up. The United States military literally were used to seize a country. Then the United States installed their own government to run it. Banana Wars, 1934. Look it up. All right. All right. I guess that's it. I had to show you. All right. And I'd like to give credit for this YouTube channel's name. It was Amazing Lewis. Yeah. I'd like to give credit to Amusing Lewis for doing those fantastic 3-part series on defunct TV channels. It's 3 videos. It's really good. I enjoyed watching them. They're fantastic, and thanks to him for reminding me of those 2 channels I used to watch. All right. I'll leave a link to his playlist for those 3 videos if you want to check him out and give him a shout out. He did a fantastic job on those videos. As always, everybody, thank you for watching, and peace out, everyone.